Hello Dungeons of Light and Darkness, and welcome to the Realm of Darkness. Now, if you've been on the internet, at all, you probably heard about a game called Undertale. I mean, it's kinda hard to miss, considering it blew up about 2 months into the game's life. Now, while I can't say it doesn't get annoying seeing the damn thing every 3 links I click, I still feel like giving my 2 cents on it. So today, I'm reviewing...
Undertale? Did I hear Undertale? We talking about Undertale? Undertale?
Yes, John, Undertale.
Yes! Dude, you have to let me review this with you.
What? No.
Why not?
Because you have an unnatural bias towards this game, and I'm trying to make this as honest as possible.
Well, I can put that aside for this one moment, but I really want to talk about this game. Please?
No.
Please?
No.
Please?
No.
Dude, I'm your fucking sword. Your only fucking friend. If you don't say yes, I'm gonna go dormant for a year.
Fine.
Yay!
But be chill about it.
No problem.
Good. Now start the show already.
Now initializing Realm of Darkness trial for Undertale. Undertale!
Now, for a good month after release, I had no idea what the fuck this game even was. I originally saw it because John told me about how amazing it apparently was, and then spammed multiple gameplay videos on Facebook about it.
I didn't spam them.
Yeah, you did. And after watching a couple of them, the first thing I thought was Earthbound clone, so I just dismissed it as such. But after it eventually blew up, I became a little bit more interested. That and the fact that John kept telling me to play it every day.
Well, I didn't tell you every day.
Yeah, you did. However, the game was a bit too rich for my blood, as pretty much every game at the time was too rich for my blood, so John ended up buying it for me. But then the whole laptop dying thing happened, which means I couldn't make any videos or play any PC games for 2 months. This left me to have to try and avoid spoilers for the game at a time where the internet was completely ripe with them. Inevitably to no avail. Also John's fault.
No, yeah, I did.
Yeah, you did. But after everything was finally set in order and I got down to playing it, how did I find it? Well, let's find out. But before we find out, I have to say that after playing this game, Undertale really is a game based off of first impressions, and some of the things we will discuss may not directly spoil any of the story elements, but they may spoil other things. We will try our best not to ruin anything, but it's best that if you have any intention of playing this game, to do it before watching the rest of this video. It's rather cheap and, to be honest, rather short, but it's a very interesting experience. Trust us, we'll wait. We're not going anywhere.
A long time ago, the world consisted of both humans and monsters, living in harmony. But one day, a war broke out between the two species, and the monsters following defeat led to them being sealed underground. This was the case for a long time, until one day a child stumbled upon the barrier between the underground and the surface and accidentally fell in. You now play as that child, and now forced to roam the underground and encounter countless monsters, all in pursuit for a way to climb back to the surface.
The plot of this game gets much deeper than this, and because of the nature of the game being very story-oriented, I'm actually very reluctant to talk about any of it in this segment. Besides, there are 2 completely different methods of playing this game, and deciding how you go about playing it will determine the flow of the narrative. But to avoid much interruption, anything special about the plot we need to talk about will be moved to the critical analysis section. Now let's move on. Undertale's a rather special snowflake, isn't it? The game is meant to be a parody of traditional RPGs, and as a result it sports a lot of familiar elements from RPGs such as turn-based combat, a level-up system, and equipment. But at the same time, it intentionally lacks or just flat-out mocks others. For example, all the shop's menus contain the options to buy, sell, talk, like usual, but if you try to sell them anything, most shopkeepers will just look at you funny and tell you to get the fuck out. Not exactly a wise business decision to keep buying old, tattered, and pre-owned gear, now is it? It's things like this that I love about the game. I'm one of those people who really appreciate games that are self-aware, without being too in your face about it. Breaking the 4th wall is fine as long as the other 3 walls are kept intact. And Undertale does this exceptionally well. It constantly puts into question most of the tropes found in RPGs, and even video games on a whole. This makes for a very amusing experience and breathes fresh air into an otherwise predictable genre. But aside from breaking walls, this game also tweaks some formulas. The most important one being how this game handles battles. Whenever you encounter an enemy, you will be transported to this sort of arena. And this little heart here, which represents your soul, is surrounded by a white box which you can move around freely in. Whenever it's the enemy's turn to attack, it will literally send anything it possibly can at you into the box, and it's your job to avoid everything or suffer tons of damage. Yes, they seriously made turn-based combat into bullet hell. That's awesome.
When it's your turn, you're given 4 options: fight, act, items, and mercy. Fight and items are self-explanatory, but the 2 interesting options you want to focus on are act and mercy. You see, like we said, this game is a parody of RPGs, so the concept of mob grinding is also put into question. This game sort of revolves around a moral choice gimmick of being able to win encounters by brute force, or choosing to settle disputes in other more creative ways and then sparing the enemy. So because of this, the battle can go either 2 ways. You can be a dick and cut down everyone in your way and move on with your life, or you could be a goody two-shoes like me and try and befriend everyone instead. If you decide to choose what the community has dubbed the pacifist route, you're to hit the act button, which will treat you to a slew of options. Based on context clues, you'll have to try and find a way that will make the enemy not want to fight you anymore. And then when that's complete, the enemy's name will glow yellow, and you can head on over to the mercy button and spare them. However, if you choose to go the traditional way of doing things, being fucking murder, a board will appear and a bar will slide from left to right across the board. The closer to the center of the board the bar lands, the more damage you will deal. Pretty simple and bare bones, but just enough to keep you focused and not just mashing Z.
It should be noted that every enemy in the game can be spared, therefore you can go throughout the entire game without killing anybody if you really wanted to, and the game really does want you to do this. But at the same time, this brings a dilemma because doing so won't award you any experience, which means you won't level up. And the bullet hell does get gradually more difficult as time goes on, so you'd probably want more HP to at least, live. You can also go around killing everyone you want, but then you're just a real douchebag now, aren't you? However, whatever choice you do make, and there are a lot of them, it will ultimately impact how the story is told rather heavily. So technically there are a multitude of outcomes you can get. Because of this, combined with all the different decisions you can make, the lore of the world, the writing of the game itself, and all the secrets and Easter eggs, it's literally guaranteed that you can last a good couple of separate playthroughs, and you will most likely find at least something new to appreciate in each of them. It is the freshest experience I've ever had with an RPG in a long time. That in itself is an achievement.
Did you just say fresh, my squiggle?
No, okay, we are not doing that again. Well now, holy shit. I think the moment I realized I actually did want to pick up Undertale was when I stumbled across its official soundtrack. What you're hearing at the moment is the very first song I heard, and needless to say, I fucking loved it. And this is not the only amazing song the game has in its arsenal. There are tons more, like almost all of them. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. If you frequent YouTube, there's a good chance you've heard some of these songs already and haven't even realized it. There's a song for literally any situation the game could possibly put you in. You want some feels? Here's a song. Game is being silly? Here's a song. In a peaceful area? Here's some mood music. It's like this game has theme songs for life itself. To this day, the game has been listening to at least one of its songs per day because the soundtrack is that good. Also, putting into consideration that the guy who made the music was the same guy who developed pretty much most of the entire game, that's impressive.
Now when it comes to art design, however, things are generally a lot simpler. I mean, come on, there's not much that you can do with 16-bit graphics. It's not like you can make it look as gorgeous as Child of Light or something. But even then, for a 16-bit game, it still looks a bit, underwhelming.
I see a lot of people mistaking it for 8-bit when looking at the sprites and backgrounds, and to be honest, I can see why. It's not really that impressive. It drastically improves when the battle interface comes up, but since most of the game is dialogue and walking around, you're kind of just looking at this, and it's generally uninteresting. It's not an eyesore by any means, but it's just really bland and generic. You wanna know what isn't generic? The character designs. Perfect piece of shit.
Nice shot.
Thanks. But seriously, the designs of the characters are really good. Nothing bland there.
They're either really badass, really cute, or really, detailed. And then there's Burger Pants. Best character in my opinion.
And let's not forget about the animation either, because damn, it's very rare to get to see fucking sprites move so fluidly. This is the way sprites work. Games that use them don't really take all the time to animate movements like this and, you know, use all the frames that the game gives you. And don't get me wrong, even Undertale all the time doesn't do that, but when it does, it brings a smile on my face. Just the little things.
Finally, while the backgrounds are simple, the game still manages to craft a pretty moving atmosphere in some places, and create some really cool looking settings. There were a couple of screens that I'm pretty sure everyone stopped at to admire the view or even snap a screenshot. And every single time you entered a room and you saw that castle in the distance, you knew that was where you're headed. You knew that was your final destination, and seeing it far out in the distance there, getting closer every time you saw it, just made you even more determined to get closer and reach the end. It may not be much, but it is pretty damn good.
I'm almost afraid to do this.
Don't worry, man. I'm positive the Undertale community will understand everything negative you're about to say in this segment. Oh, who am I kidding? I'll go get the flame shield.
Right then. There's not many terrible things I can say about Undertale, but this is by no means a perfect game. However, I keep seeing scores like 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10, 10 out of 10. I even keep seeing people calling it Game of the Year. Game of the Year! Oh, excuse me, what? Guys, I love this game, but I don't think it's that great. But anyway, opinions are opinions, and if you clicked on this video, you must be interested in mine, so let's go. First thing I want to talk about are the characters. I love them all, 10 out of 10.
Dude, seriously?
Nah, I'm just kidding. No, but seriously, these characters are arguably the best thing about this entire game. Most of them are so unbelievably well written that it's hard not to love them. Trust me, I tried. They're not the deepest of characters, but they're filled to the brim with personality, and I think that's what counts. Sure, some of them feel kind of one-dimensional and tropey, but most of them are a little bit more fleshed out than that. They all have their own secrets about them, or their own struggles to face, and they all develop. And I feel like it's even better because it's not them developing along with you, it's them developing because of you. Which is one of the reasons why everyone loves these characters. They almost feel a personal connection to them. And despite them being monsters, they share a lot of human struggles. I definitely felt like I related to a lot of the main cast, which is a good thing. Oh, and have I mentioned that this game is fucking hilarious yet? Because it's fucking hilarious. The dialogue is brilliant, the things that some of the characters do are stupid, the way to beat some of the normal enemies is just silly, even the save points are funny. It makes you want to examine everything to see what the game's gonna say next, it's great!
Next up is the other, arguably the best thing about this game, the boss fights. Now we already explained to you how the battle system works. Dodge the bullet hell, and figure out how to mercy people. But boss battles take the concept to a whole new level, testing your endurance, common sense, and puzzle solving skills in order for you to figure out the perfect solution to winning the fight without actually harming anyone. Or you could just, you know, press Z a lot and destroy their fucking souls, but that's less fun. They're the most enjoyable and intense parts of the game, and all of them provide some level of challenge. On top of this, they all add new combat mechanics into the mix to expand upon the normal gameplay. And some of these puzzles will flat out mess with your head. And I think it's rather important it has such an engaging gameplay like this, because if it didn't, then it would have solely relied on its story elements, and this game is already plot heavy enough. It's a lot of talking for a rather short game, and most of your time playing will actually be reading dialogue. So if you're not really into that, this may not be the game for you. However, it really isn't that bad considering the dialogue is at least humorous, and the story, it's pretty damn interesting.
Speaking of the story, we should probably talk about that one. Let's start by talking about the pacifist run. The pacifist run is most commonly believed to be the main run of the entire game. It's achieved by going throughout the entire game without killing a single monster, along with going on quote-unquote dates with some of the members of the main cast. It basically revolves around the idea that monsters are people too, and that violence isn't the only answer. Because of this, the game is a lot less focused on actual combat and much more focused on puzzle solving and the player's interaction with the world and characters. It gives you a lot of time to get acquainted with all the characters so that they seem as human as possible. That way, when you inevitably fight some of them, it truly makes you think about whether or not you should actually hurt them. As such, this run has a very lighthearted tone throughout most of it. Whenever the game is not making you laugh, it's making you think, as it spends a lot of time building the lore in the world as well. If you're inquisitive enough, you're sure to find out more about the war between the humans and monsters, the power of souls, how the monsters live underground, what the monsters have been trying to do to escape the underground, etc, etc. Pretty deep and sad, as it sheds light on an entire civilization's struggle to remain hopeful. Hopeful that one day they'll be able to break free from the shackles of the underground and make their way back. But at the same time, you can't really feel too sorry for them because they still technically want to destroy humanity. But even then, you can't really blame them considering humanity were the ones to do this to them in the first place, and by now I guess you can probably see that the game likes to fuck with your head. It all compounds upon itself as the story reaches its final act. Some context for people who haven't played this game but for some reason still refuse to press the button to skip the spoilery content. After the events in Hotland, Alphys, the Underground's royal scientist, informs you that leaving the Underground is not as easy as it's made out to be. All this time you've been heading towards the King's Castle, people have been telling you that he's a nice guy and like he could never really hurt anybody. If you just ask nicely, he'd probably lead you out to the surface. And well, they're half right, because he's a nice guy, but you're not gonna make it to the surface alive. Turns out that in order to pass through the barrier, one would need a power equivalent to 1 human soul and 1 monster soul. What that essentially means is that you're gonna have to fight King Asgore to the death and win, or remain trapped in the underground. Or worse. Kinda puts a damper on the whole don't kill anything vibe the game had going on, doesn't it? It only gets worse when you remember that to break the barrier holding the monsters underground, they needed a power equivalent to 7 human souls, and Asgore already has 6. And it gets worse when the game tells you the terrible story of what happened to the first human that ever came down here, and the entire royal family. Because you think after everything we've done to these people, that kid must have been destroyed. But nope, they still didn't kill this child. No, instead the prince, Azriel, finds the kid, takes them back home, the king and queen then proceed to adopt the kid as a second child, they get along really well, and then the kid gets sick and dies, so everybody gets immediately sad again. And then Azriel absorbs the kid's soul, leaves the underground with the body, gets misinterpreted as a murderer by the humans, and ultimately gets bludgeoned to near death until he arrives home by sheer willpower, and then proceeds to also die. Fuck! That's some heavy shift in tone there. So anyway, you go up to Asgore, you fight him, you beat him, you choose not to finish him off, and then everything lives happily ever after. Nope, cause after you beat Asgore, this fucker, cheeky prick, comes in, destroys his soul, and then absorbs all of the human souls in an attempt to destroy everything. And then he crashes your game. Excuse me, what even happened here? I'm not even going to go into detail about the what the fucker it is this boss fight. I'll save that for another video. But TLDR, the human souls revolt, you spare him, he runs away, and you try to find some other way to leave the underground, and everything lived not so happily ever after. Oh, come on! No, it's still not over, as he'll come back and tell you of a way to get a better ending, per se. The actual, true pacifist ending. So you reload your save, you go back, do whatever you need to do, and then things get even more insane.
Turns out Alphys is like the worst scientist ever, and in attempts to create an alternative method of breaking the seal by reverse engineering the power of determination, and using it on fallen monsters, she created these things.
No, God!
Yeah, around this time the game had me thinking, you know, Alphys, not really a good person.
Not only has she been keeping this secret from literally everyone, including the family members of said abominations, but ever since this monster's test subjects fucked up, she started testing it on...
flowers. Thanks, Alphys. Great job. So after getting through the absolutely horrifying experience at Alphys' lab, you are sent back to fight Asgore again. But this time you're saved by Toriel and then reunited with all your friends. For about 5 seconds. Because Flawley comes back again, and this time I was way too tired to deal with this game's shit. All I wanted was for the game to come to a conclusion. And I received one. So Flawley is the prince who was the son of the people who you've known from the beginning of the game, and all this time What? That was my thought process as I was fighting this boss, and while I have to admit I gave it a guess, the impact of the reveal was still very strong, and the boss fight itself was very cool. So after beating him, which really shouldn't be possible, because at like this point he's a god, Azure goes back to his normal self and apologizes for everything he's done. As it turns out, his time reincarnated as a flower left him without a soul, and because of that it kinda led him to go, well, you know, insane. And John cried.
Psh, me cry for that? Shut up.
No final thoughts? Damn. It isn't perfect, obviously. I mean, it feels kind of rushed near the end. There's like 4 false endings clumped together. And the overall message of the game starts to get a little bit more asinine as the story continues. But it was intense, it was emotional, it was hilarious, and the ending was just truly amazing. And it definitely left a lasting impression because holy shit, I'm pretty sure I lost sleep over this game. I couldn't get it over my head for like 3 days. And with a spectacular ending like that, you're probably wondering, well, what's a genocide run like? Right. About that, remember when I said there were going to be some negative things? Well, here are some really negative things. Genocide Run fucking sucks.
Yeah, I can't back you up on this one.
Don't expect you to. Actually, I don't expect a lot of people to agree with me on this one, but it's actually something I feel really strongly about. Firstly, to achieve it, you have to kill everything. Not just every boss, or every enemy you come across, I mean everything. You have to eliminate every single monster until there is nothing left to eliminate. To do that, you have to run around getting random encounters. It's basically just a huge grind that never ends. Really boring grind. And I know what people are about to say, but that's the point. It's not supposed to be enjoyable, right? And I understand that, but hear me out. I am well aware that the Genocide Run is supposed to make you feel bad for instinctively killing everything for experience like in other RPGs. It's supposed to paint you as the antagonist rather than the protagonist. It's supposed to be a grind because grinding isn't necessarily fun. That's not my main problem with the run though. There are a lot of problems. Remember how I said one of the best things about the game was the characters and the dialogue? Yeah, that's gone. And yeah, obviously they'd be gone, you're killing everybody. But when I say gone, I mean gone. There is immensely less dialogue from anything in this game. There is none, and if any, few secrets to uncover, and even the damn save points don't tell you anything anymore. Anyone that does talk is either telling you how much of a dick you are, which is honestly well deserved, or they're dead, or they're gonna die in the next 5 seconds. There are some laughs, which is impressive given the context, but they're very far and few between, and they're mostly at the beginning of the game and at your expense. And so you think, well, if the characters and dialogue have gone out the window, we should at least have some kick-ass fights to make up for it, right? I mean, you're killing everything, so the game should be harder to compensate, correct? Nope, they're gone too. The regular fights are just regular fights, and considering that you have to do a lot of regular fights to even do this run, they begin to lose their charm pretty quick. And the boss fights, which should be amazing, are literally almost non-existent. By that, I mean any place that there was supposed to be a boss fight no longer exists. Are you serious? What kind of backwards ass logic is that? Instead, the fight starts and immediately ends with you critical hitting whoever is foolish enough to try and stop you. This is true for every fight, bar 2. Undyne and Sans. I just want to talk about these fights for a second. These 2 fights are the best fights in the entire game. They're so unbelievably difficult when compared to the rest of the game to the point that you will be calling bullshit at every turn. But it's the type of bullshit that you can deal with. It's never going to put you in any impossible to handle situations, you just have to be really quick on your feet. It either comes down to you either adapting really quickly to what they throw at you, or you dying a lot to them as you learn more and more about how they fight. More than often the second one. Well, I mean, okay, there are some bullshit parts to them, sans, but it's not like death has any penalty in the game where saving and resetting are main plot points. You only truly lose if they manage to break your spirit, which is what the whole damn run is supposed to be about. Besides, the genre is called bullet hell, not up. And I'm giving these fights so much praise so you think I'd love the run on a whole, but I can't because these are the only 2 high points of the run. Why are these the only 2 boss fights? Why does everybody else all of a sudden get goosebumps when you show up to them when they were previously all over you like butter on toast in the pacifist run? I mean seriously, you're telling me in the run where you are literally the nicest living organism in the world, everyone wants to destroy you,
but in the run where you are Satan, everyone either runs or holds back or tries to spare you. That's just stupid. Case in point, one of the characters, Mettaton, has one of the best or at least most creative concepts for a boss fight in the Pacifist run, and that was because he was a fucking entertainer. In the Genocide run, he's been completely reworked so that his entire freaking purpose is to kill you. And when you meet him and he gets a new form and everything, he dies in literally one hit. He doesn't even attack you if you skip a turn. How does that make any sense? How am I supposed to take that seriously? This run doesn't even let you do any of the puzzles in the game. Why? In fact, since the entire frickin' province is trying to run away from me, it could have been a perfect opportunity to implement even more difficult puzzles to try and keep me at bay. Things like this make the run completely not worth it, and that's not something that I should be saying about any part of a video game, especially when it's pretty much half of your game. And the game really doesn't want you to complete this run either. There are so many frickin' factors that this game doesn't tell you about that will negate the trigger of the Genocide run and kick you right down to neutral. Albeit most of them require you to go out of your way to feel bad and basically forfeit, but there are some that are bullshit. My absolute favorite one involves Mettaton, where if you don't critical hit him by getting every bar in the center of the board, or if you do literally anything but attack him on your first turn, he still dies, but you get kicked down to neutral for hesitating. Which is a waste of time because you already killed everyone and everyone else has already evacuated the capital. You still technically murdered everyone. Why is this ending neutral? And I would still be ready to give this run leniency if it did what it set out to do in the first place and make you feel like a fucking dick. And it does, for all of 2 minutes. Since the game is trying so hard to make you seem like an asshole, it makes the character you're playing as act and do some really messed up shit without your input. They'll move by themselves, they'll emote like a psychopath, they'll interrupt people, which you literally cannot do in games. I don't know about you, but that completely threw me off because it's supposed to be a silent protagonist, an icon that you put yourself in. But when the game goes out of its way to give that character an obviously contrasting personality to any sane human being just to make a point, it kinda ruins the immersion. I can't really feel guilty because it feels like I'm not even doing anything in the first place and the game just becomes you leading a sociopath down a road and watching him do his thing. I felt worse about myself killing characters on neutral runs, because that hurts, since you have to go through the long struggle of the battle before dealing the final blow. It really gives you time to think about your actions and really contemplating whether or not you're making the right choice. In this one, there is no struggle. There is no anything. There's not really any time to think about the consequences of your actions, you just press a button and they're dead. And so after all of this, how does Genocide run end? You walk up, you kill Asgoroth immediately, and then you encounter Flowey, and I swear this is the second best part of the game right here. He literally begs to be spared, which results in you brutally murdering him. Then you meet up with the first human that ever fell down here, who turns out to be a huge dick, says that she's been resurrected because of your acts of violence, implying that you've been possessed all this time, and then says that with your forces combined, you can literally destroy the world. And so you do. I mean, they offer you a choice and you can choose not to, but it doesn't matter because they'll destroy the world anyway. And that's the game. People, the fucking siren. Stop with the siren, John. You open up the game again, and there's nothing but a wind sound effect for like 10 minutes, and after that the dude offers you a true reset after rambling on about how you're kind of a dick for the 15 billionth time. But of course, the reset will come at the cost of your soul. Now you could argue that's not really a fair trade, but considering you just single-handedly slaughtered an entire species, and the planet, don't think you'll be needing that soul. So you get the game back, but now this dick is haunting your save file, so if you try to attempt the pacifist run again after this, the game feels the need to remind you that you were the worst person by souring the ending. That, seems a little bit unnecessary. The reason for this to happen, you kinda got the point, you made it very clear about the 16 billion times you said it during the game. Didn't need to hear it after the game has already been beaten. The entire run is a big bag of overdoing it and an even bigger bag of wasted potential. It strips down what little gameplay the game actually had, took away most of the good story it had, and left you with a bare bones unsatisfying experience, which is bad, no matter how you twist it. If you like the run for what it is, that's great, that's fantastic, more power to you, but I don't. And if you haven't tried it yet and are contemplating it because of the two cool fights it has in it, just get a separate save file off the internet, swap it out for your old one, and go at it. You can swap back later, saves you a lot of trouble. Probably an unpopular opinion, but it's just how I feel.
I mean, I do have to admit, it's really amazing just how different the Genocide run is from the Pacifist run, and I do love the character developments they gave to Flavian and Sans. That was pretty good, but that doesn't fix everything else. There must have been a better way for Toby to execute what he was going for that didn't include killing the overall experience of the game, because you got to remember that in the end, this is a game. But besides all that, the game is great. I do have other small nitpicks. The start of the game is really slow. Everything from the ruins to Snowden feels like a perpetual hell on multiple playthroughs. Hell of the Ruins itself isn't even that fun the first time around. You also move really slow and the game doesn't have a run button. This wouldn't be nearly as bad if the game didn't clearly want you to backtrack for secrets. A lot. In fact, there are multiple times where backtracking is required for progression, and if you've watched my last video, you probably know how I feel about that. Also doesn't help that all the fast travel segments are clumped up together in the middle of the map and nowhere else. Plus, when you're level 1 all the time, you kinda have to spend all the money you ever get on healing items, and if you're bad at bullet hell, that means backtracking to your nearest shop every couple of minutes. Could just chalk that up to get good, but be real with yourself. How many people are actually good at bullet hell games? And to be honest, this game is really short, and while it has good replay value, it seems really weak for an RPG. And trust me, I'm not really a fan of really long games either, but 6 hours seems a little bit too short. And being honest, the ending itself felt kind of rushed, as if there was something missing. Probably just me though. But that's pretty much it. Everything else is great. It was a really fun and lasting experience, and I'm glad I played it. Well, let's wrap this up. Hey John, get that flame shield yet? Well, you've heard everything I had to say about this game, so now it's time to decide whether I commend this game to everyone, or condemn it to this realm so that nobody ever touched it ever again. So what do I think? This is a commendation, no doubt, but there's something you need to know first. This game is overhyped. I've seen people talk about this game so much that I got sick of it fast, and even after I warmed up to it, the game's hype train was still going at it at full force. And it kinda hurts when you watch streams or let's plays of the game where people are obviously going in blind, and they do something or don't do something that the fans feel like they should have done, and so there's a whole bunch of people just straight up insulting them and telling them that they aren't playing the game right. Like, how do you play a game wrong? I know not everyone in the community is like this. Some people actually have made amazing stuff for this game, from beautiful fan art to animations to Fallout mods of the game. But the negative ones are always there, and to be honest, they're much more common. It's just another case of a good thing's reputation being tarnished by a terrible community. People like this obviously don't get that most of the game's amazing qualities are obviously based on first experiences. So what I'm saying here is, if you haven't played this game but for some reason you're being turned off to it, don't be. The game is worth it. But at the same time, don't buy into the hype either. It's at least worth one try, and trust me, I was not impressed either until the thing ended up in my Steam library and I started it up. Neither were any of my friends, but I got them to give it a try and they enjoyed it. The game is so fun, so amazing, and so full of charm. Commend immediately. So John, what about you? You got me into this game. What are your thoughts?
Undertale is actually one of the best games that I've actually played. With such relatable characters, the graphics were great, for a pixel game of course. The gameplay was awesome. I'm a big bullet hell fan, and pretty much whatever is on this list I can pretty much agree with, except for the genocide part. I actually applaud Toby Fox for not encouraging you to kill your friends, except for Undyne and Sans, because, well, we have save states for that. Those were pretty fun. Other than that, it's a pretty good game. I think you should try it out. So, play it. Now, do it. Timmy.
Anyway guys, this has been Darkness the Second. I'd like to thank you all for joining us in the realm of darkness. To the whole YouTube shiz, you know, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. What's worse is that this trope is not exclusive to the beginning of games either. You could have hours of the game already invested and a ton of levels and gear under your belt, and then the game decides to throw you the meanest curveball, and all of a sudden your Keyblade is replaced with a wooden sword.
You wanna have a bad time?
Anime is real!
You're filled with determination!
Memes, 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 memes!